Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name's Fiddle. Today I'll be showing you how to make this display stand and how to adapt a skeleton for it. As always, don't forget to check the link in the description. That would take you to the scavenger hunt where you'll find the list of materials and a printable guide so you can make this along with me. Okay, are you ready? Let's go. To start building this stand, we'll need our base, a long piece of wire, and a pair of pliers. At one end of the wire, we need to make a small coil that will fit inside of our base. Once you have the coil the right size, make a right angle and somewhat of an L shape. It should look something like this, and it doesn't need to be perfect because no one will see it in the end. Now that we've got the bottom part done, we can start working on the top. Using your guide, measure and cut your post, leaving about a half an inch excess. Then make a medium-sized coil at the top end. Right now this end is just decoration, but we will be making something that we can hang on this hook later. Once you're done making the coil, set it aside. We're going to move on to the next piece. This one has a coil at each end and a bend in the middle. Starting with the top coil first, work your way down to the other end. One of the things that I like about this piece is the dramatic lines. It helps tie it into the rest of the house and into the movie. Once you get to the bottom, leave some excess so you can make that last coil. Next will be the big swirl. This is the one that the skeleton hangs off of. And the last swirly that we need to make is the smallest one of all. This one is basically for support between all the other pieces. Now that we've got all of our wire swirls done, we can start attaching them together. For this, you'll need some really thin wire. I wouldn't say as thin as speaker wire, maybe just a little bit thicker. To make things easier to work with, We're going to attach all of the swirls inside the L-shaped piece first and then attach it to the long post. The first swirl we're going to attach is the small little one that sits right in the corner. For this piece, it's much easier to work from the center outwards. To make sure that we're getting a strong wrap, wrap your wire around the L shape first by itself, about 5 good wraps around. Then add on the swirl and wrap 5 times around both of them. Then go back to just wrapping around the L shape for another 5 times. You can wrap it more than 5 times if you want, but that's always a good place to start. Repeat this process for every intersecting part that's indicated by the red circles on your pattern. And because it is using the same technique and there are so many intersecting points, and it's basically the same footage over and over again, to keep it from getting too boring, we're going to move on with the rest of the project. But first, here's a close-up of what mine looks like. Okay, now that all those little pieces are put together, we're going to attach the L shape to the post. Using the same exact method that we have been, but this time we have to. Frankie says hello, and I forgot what I was saying. Oh, I remember. We have to be a little more selective about where we're wrapping the wire around the L-shaped piece because we've already got all that wire on there and we don't want to bulk it up too much. So we want to try to avoid wrapping where we've already wrapped. Hopefully that makes sense. If you would like to learn more about wire wrapping, go check out the Back to Earth Creations channel here on YouTube. She's an amazing artist and has tutorials on all kinds of different mediums. I'll put a link to her channel in the description box. This is what mine looks like up close. It doesn't need to be perfect. Later on we're going to be painting over it so you won't see the details anyways. Now with all the wire wrapping done, we can set our post and our base. I set mine in way too early before I even had it put together, and it did make it a little more cumbersome. But anyways, set your post in with resin. And while that's curing, we can start working on our skeleton. There are quite a few different variations of these little guys out there, but as long as they're between 5 and 6 inches long, they'll be perfect for 1/12 scale. Some of them come with hooks in the head. Mine didn't, so I needed to mark and drill a hole so I can insert an eye hook. I used super glue and E6000 to hold it in place, but really I should have just used resin because it ended up coming out and I have to glue it back in again. I guess I could also try super glue and baking soda. That might also work. Okay, next you get to decide on what joints you want to move and which ones you don't. The only pieces on my skeleton that moved were the hips, and I wanted mine to be a little more articulated, and that meant cutting his arms and legs off at the joints. Now that he's apart, we can drill the holes in his limbs, and they should be a little less than 1/4 of an inch away from the end of his bone. Repeat the process on all the limbs that need to be attached. Okay, now that we've got all the holes drilled, we need to put our jump rings through the bones. But I didn't have jump rings that were big enough, so I ended up making mine out of jewelry head pins. To make sure the jump ring was the right size, I only curved 1/2 of it, then poked it through the hole, added the other limb, and then closed it up. This is what mine looks like so far, and we are ready to go to paint. To paint the stand, I wanted a black metallic color, but I can't find my bottle of paint, so I mixed up my own. I started with some black paint, then added 2 scoops of cornstarch, and finally a metallic rose gold. I mixed that together until I was happy with both the consistency and color. Adding cornstarch to your paint makes it thicker and more opaque. This means less coats and less dry time. I painted the whole stand with this and only had to do 1 coat. While the stand was drying, I went ahead and went over my skeleton with a black wash. I didn't like the original paint job that he had. I painted over him white a while ago, and I'm just now getting to the black wash. And with that, it brings us to the end of our tutorial. I hope this gives you ideas for your next project, or you join along in making this little guy with me. As always, don't forget to hit share, subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. Next tutorial, we'll be making some or all of the small things for the room, including a blood transfusion device and a bone saw. I can't wait for all that. Thank you, Ginger, and I'll see you next time.